Welcome to The Legal Edge, marketing smarter for law firms. I'm your host, Rob Rosasco. Today's law firms aren't just competing with other law firms, they're competing with the expectations of the internet. Clients expect instant answers, seamless experiences, and immediate follow-up. Today, we're unpacking something that's become a major opportunity for law firms across the country, mass tort leads. Mass tort cases involve large groups of plaintiffs who have suffered harm from the same source. Think defective drugs, medical devices, or consumer products. These cases can generate huge settlements, which is why they become such a hot space for ambitious law firms. But there's a catch. The competition is fierce, the cost per lead is high, and converting these leads into signed clients is where most firms fall short. Joining me today is Jon Cumberworth from Intake Engine, a company that helps mass tort firms not just attract leads, but actually convert them into signed clients using automation, chat, and modern intake systems. We're going to dive into how firms can make their marketing dollars work harder and turn clicks into actual clients. Jon's the technical brain behind the system. He's part data scientist, part marketer, part automation nerd, and he's here to pull back the curtain on what's really working in legal intake. Jon, it's great to have you on the show.
Glad to be here, Rob. Appreciate it.
You work at the intersection of law and tech. Were you always a systems guy even when you were a kid?
You know, it's funny. As a kid, you think of systems as like building and you love to engineer things. I could not sit and stand Legos. I could not sit and build things. I was always out playing, mainly sports. But as I got older, I've always recognized that I do like the systems and workflow part of things. So maybe not the building, but I like to make things as efficient as possible and as easy as possible. I think it's a little bit of my ADD kicks in and I'd rather be outside playing. So how can I get this to work as quickly as possible with as little input as possible, which has actually benefited me on the systems.
Understood. I don't know if you do any consulting work, but I may need to get you in to take a look at our systems. I'm sure there's some effectiveness things you could help us with. All right, so before we get into systems and strategies, I always love to hear the origin story. Most people in legal tech didn't start there. And Jon, I know your background spans tech, digital marketing, and operations, so let's rewind the tape a little bit. How'd you end up working in legal marketing and intake systems?
We'd have to go back to 2008. A good friend of mine from college, we always knew we wanted to start a business together. He was starting his own law firm and was diving into digital, into tech, into lead gen for law firms, and recognized that live chat wasn't something that was being done across the board, but it was a great opportunity. And legal marketing at the time was kind of like the Wild West. So we spun some things together and connected some systems and licensed some software at the time and put together Client Chat Live. So it was a bootstrap group and I was working in oil and gas on the weekends and we hired a buddy of ours to basically take it over and run it and help build it as I was more silent partner. So 2015, fast forward, I moved back from Dubai where I was working in oil and gas for a steel distribution company in supply chain and took over Client Chat Live full-time as CEO. So I was aware of legal marketing at the time in tech, but that was kind of my first foray in jumping into intake and managing that workflow for chat and PI firms mainly and mass torts. So that was 2021. We sold Client Chat Live to the parent company of Alert Communications. I worked there for a couple of years as well. And over the last year or so, jumped on with the team at Intake Engine to take over as CEO of Intake Engine and work with mass tort campaigns, work with PI campaigns. So couldn't stay away from legal intake and jumped right back into it.
Very good. Cool. So what was the vision behind Intake Engine when it launched, and any idea where the original idea came from?
Yeah, so Intake Engine was spun out as a part of Blue Sky Legal. And Blue Sky was started by Devin Downey and Jason Flores and Marco Thornton. And those three had come out of Barron and Budd, a firm out of Dallas, and they focused mainly on mass torts. And Intake Engine was something that they utilized for, obviously, for intake, for qualifying, for signing, e-signing clients and plaintiffs. And Blue Sky Legal was the the rollout of the marketing side, so the lead gen side, radio, TV campaigns, things like that. So I think Intake Engine was looked at as a separate standalone entity or service and company, if you will, and that's definitely capable to just do intake. But that's more of the tech piece, and that's what I've been taking over to update, help scale it, adding features for flexibility and just more capabilities to handle different scenarios and situations for different campaigns and different firms, and still working side by side with Blue Sky when needed as well on different campaigns.
Okay. So where do you stand now in terms of the evolution of Intake Engine? I mean, was it always a process under review, or are you constantly tweaking the system to fine tune it, or where are you in that process?
Yeah. So with tech right now, it's absolutely insane how fast everything is moving.
Yeah.
So every week we look up and say, okay, this feature was something we're working on. Now it's capable. Now we can just plug and play with something that came out, something along those lines. So it's always ongoing. But really, what we're looking at is working with the firms that we have partnered with over the years and say, okay, you want to run this Roundup campaign. How many different retainers do you have? What are the different scenarios? What kind of logic do we want to put in? And so it's tweaking how we can make it more efficient for the firms. But then what I'm looking at mostly now is how we can improve the user experience from the plaintiff or the potential client standpoint. So with chat or with a link that we can text them that they can basically complete their intake on their own, complete the e-sign on their own, and then have our human agents follow up to verify and validate. So
Cool.
right now, I'd say we're in that user journey type of phase where we're mapping things out, picking out how we want to improve pieces of it, because ultimately that should lead to better conversion rates, which ultimately leads to more signed clients.
Right. So I think I know the answer to this question before I even ask it, but I'm curious what your thoughts are. So the feedback you get from your clients in terms of the intake process, I can imagine, is extremely valuable.
Exactly. And that's part of the thing that I wish we had more of when I was at Client Chat Live. Once we generated, helped convert that visitor into a lead. And a lot of times we lost visibility. We didn't know if they became a client or not. And so having that full spectrum and that full kind of view for us, we're able to look at this. And that's where the connection with Blue Sky going forward as well is going to be even more important for, hey, you're generating these leads, say from Facebook campaigns. Did they become clients? We have that full view and the ability to kind of pick apart the data and feed it back into the machine essentially. So I think the feedback we get from our clients, and for me at least, it's been, hey, can you integrate with this? We've never integrated with, say, lead docket, or can we add all these new fields to map automatically as well? So just hearing that and basically saying, yeah, we can do that. Let's be flexible. I always try to err on the side of yes, we can, which maybe that's the salesperson in me. It's like, sure, we can do that.
We
Let's
can do
create
that.
that problem. But when you own the ops side as well, it's like, okay, maybe pump the brakes a little bit.
Yeah.
But always looking for ways to make it more efficient for our clients.
You just mentioned talking about the sales guy in you makes you always want to say yes. And trust me, I empathize. I completely understand that line of thinking. Has there ever been a time where you had to say no, and why?
There's definitely been some times where we have to say no. Going back pre-legal tech, legal marketing, when I was in the oil and gas world, again, I'm not an engineer. I didn't know the machining and manufacturing side. So a lot of times I would have to go to our operations team and say, can we do this?
Yeah.
Usually it was a no back to me. Okay, what about this or what about this? So there's definitely times when I've had to say no. Usually it's more of like a one-off where, hey, can you integrate with this random CRM that nobody else integrates with? And we get 3 leads a month, something like that, where it's difficult. We want to help, but it may not make business or economic sense for us to do that. We'll put that on the roadmap, but it's definitely a lower priority for sure.
All right. One of the patterns I see all the time in law firm marketing is firms doing the hard part. They're spending big on pay-per-click, on SEO, sometimes even TV or radio, billboards. And then they're losing potential clients because their intake process is broken. It's like setting up the perfect dinner party and then locking the door so your guests can't come in. And I know you're on the front line of conversion, so let's talk a little bit about bottlenecks and other issues that you might find in the intake process. The typical life cycle of a mass tort lead and where intake engine fits into that journey.
Yeah, I think mass torts has a lot of similarities to PI, personal injury, but it's kind of its own animal at the same time, right? So most of the time, people are finding either a TV ad or a radio or a Facebook ad based on demographics, location. Sometimes it can get it even as detailed as there is medical data available. And so the targeting for some of these is getting pretty crazy, but very effective. And so somebody will reach out through typically a Facebook Messenger, Facebook ad, Instagram, or go to a landing page and fill out a form. And the difference, I think, with that and PI is PI, they're going to jump to the next firm. They're going to do it for a few firms because they already know what they want to a certain extent. Mass torts are not going to go start finding other firms to reach out to. So once that form or once that kind of initial contact is made, for us, it's an immediate email and text back to them. We have their consent. All the trusted forms are coming to us as well. So we send them that link to let them know, hey, we're working on this. We're going to be in contact. But with that link, we also give them access to our portal. We call it the client journey, where they can start that process. They can start answering the questions. They can start filling out essentially more detail about their situation. And this is the same question, same form essentially that our intake agents are using as well. So they're answering those same questions. So a little bit of a head start, but also giving them the ability to do it however they want to do it. If they prefer to do it that way as opposed to over the phone, they can. So for us, it's immediate contact. Let's get in touch with them. And then we do have an agent calling out within a few minutes. And that's our goal. And that's tracked pretty closely internally. So the next part is the e-sign. And this is where I think if firms aren't using e-sign, I think there's a lot of firms that are hesitant. Hey, get all this information and then send it to us and we'll review it and give you a yes or no. By that time, you might have lost them, right?
Yeah.
So it's not about them going somewhere else maybe at that point. It's just about them going, my focus is elsewhere. And now it's just getting a hold of them. So if you've got them and their attention right there, go through the whole process. If they meet that criteria you've already set, sign them up. Let's get them signed. Let's get them transferred and over to the firm so that the firm can start the discovery process, medical records, all that stuff.
Right. Okay. What kind of automations or systems have you built into the system to sort of streamline that intake process?
So the first one is probably the notification to our firms, to the firms that we're working with. We've got this, here's the intake ID, here's the lead, things like that, because a lot of times they're seeing the same forms come across to them.
Right.
So just that confirmation of intake engine has this one, here's the information we've got, and we're getting started on it. And that's the first trigger. The second part, I think, automation wise is, and we're going to continue to improve on this, but it's the cadence that we're using to send more personalized messaging to that potential client. So right now we have the ability to do customized SMS, email on a campaign level, but we're adding in the ability to say, okay, this person, maybe they're in a slightly different stage than another person. And so can we change that messaging, that wording? If they've already got a retainer in front of them, it's going to be different than somebody who hasn't completed the rest of the intake.
Right.
So that kind of automation in the client journey and personalization is what we're focused on right now. And I think the other thing that we've put in place recently is the ability to essentially serve different retainers based on different criteria. So Spanish versus English is an easy one, but with like PI, we've got car accident, we do have wrongful death, so that might be a different e-sign retainer template. And so initially it was, do they qualify, yes or no? Send them the retainer. But now we've got the ability to send 12 different types based on, different criteria or scenarios.
Okay. Okay. Talk a little bit about the communication between you and your client, and then talk a little bit about response time in terms of just how quickly do firms typically get back to clients in your experience, and how quickly do they need to in order to, establish that relationship?
I think response time can be difficult to manage in the sense of if you've got a firm that says, when do you call versus when do you reach out? And there's different kind of styles, right? Different channels. So like I mentioned, immediate SMS, immediate email
Right.
with that next step. That's the first outreach. And then the phone call, that's again, probably the most important for sure. And it really depends on the time of day. If somebody fills out a form at 5 a.m., we're not going to call them immediately at 5 a.m., even if
Right.
they said to. There's some nuance there where we may hold back and then call during business hours. So we do that on a client by client basis to confirm, hey, this is probably best practice. Would you like us doing it this way? Or would you like us calling immediately if they filled out a form, no matter what time of day? So we try to set those expectations with our clients, the firms, up front as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
We're continuing to work on that communication between us and the firms. Each firm might be different in terms of what reporting they want to see. Once a day is fine. Okay, I want to see every single lead, what's happening with one by one. So it's going to be different for each firm, and we're happy to build certain things or automate reporting and things like that to be a little bit more accommodating to the firm's needs and wants.
Okay. That actually was going to be my next question, is just how significantly does the communication between you and your firms differ from firm to firm? Is it genuinely unique with each firm?
It really is. There's that general, okay, daily reporting. Everybody's going to want the must-haves. But there's certain firms and attorneys that are like, you know what, once a week meeting or once a month update, which is a little bit crazy to me, but that's adequate. And it's as long as the cases are coming in, it's a little bit out of sight, out of mind is fine. But I think more and more, once we go from the mass torts into PI more so, the PI firms are more, I need an answer like now. Yeah. Accommodating that is definitely something we're working on and improving our engine, if you will, reporting systems. So it does differ, but I think I'd rather err on the side of over communicating first, if possible, and then have them say, pull it back a little bit. So
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I agree. Tell me to go away. Don't tell me I'm not reaching out often enough.
Yep.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about technology. Of course, I'm sure you integrate. You talked about SMS. I'm sure you use chat in some way, shape, or form. You probably integrate with certainly the most popular CRMs and AI. How big an impact has AI had on your business and what you do specifically?
AI is massive for sure. We do use chat, and we built our own proprietary chat widget essentially. One thing that I always wanted to do at Client Chat Live was be able to qualify a potential client based on certain criteria and actually give that person a response one way or the other in the chat, as opposed to, okay, I've got your information, I'll pass it to the firm. I've seen so many out there that are still, let me get your information, and it definitely doesn't qualify, but it still requires the time of the call center to call them. So using chat to help qualify and not so much just get in more leads is one thing. On the AI front, right now we're using it for, we've got a new campaign, a new client. We're doing a web scrape. We're doing all the FAQ creation for our agents from that. And we've got some GPTs we've built and some automations we've built to where we can throw in a website or a landing page, and it can pump out different things, what makes the firm unique, so that our agents can actually be a representative of the firm and not just, I'm not sure the attorneys will tell you when they call you.
Yeah.
It's more of, okay, you've come to the right place. I'm so sorry you're going through this. We do handle car accidents in Central Florida. Something along those lines to where it's a better experience. We're using AI to do call scoring, and we use it to redact transcripts before we do the scoring. So instead of spending 20 minutes listening to a call and then a human scores it, we're using AI to do that in give our agents feedback as quickly as possible
Yeah.
in that regard.
So I'm assuming it's streamlined the process significantly.
Definitely, definitely. And it's one of those things of everybody's a little afraid of, if AI does that, I won't be able to add value. That's what I do. If AI does that, I don't have a job.
Right.
But for me, it's more, well, if AI can do that, let it, so that that person who is doing call scoring can then do more value add training with the agents. Or,
Right.
you know what, maybe you can help communicate with clients instead of just, staying behind the scenes. Let us do more human activities, just really empower us to do that.
Yep. You're talking about your communication with your client firms. Maybe even share some examples of the difference between a firm that has an established intake process internally, and they convert leads that you send them, you forward to them well, as compared to those that don't necessarily have a great intake process and end up leaving money on the table.
I think the ones that convert better are the ones that are also saying, hey, can you get me this report daily? Or can you get me this information? We're used to seeing it this way. They're definitely on top of things and over communicating. That's been a little bit interesting for us, because for Intake Engine, we're not a virtual receptionist. We're going to get the information and pass the lead along. What we want to do is get the intake, do the qualifying, and then the e-sign, and then get them signed up. And that's not on the first day. We'll do it up to 60 to 90 days. For the mass tort side, you still see people sign up after 45, 50 days. Not as much on PI, but it's very different than a traditional call center that says, hey, we left a message, here's the voicemail we left. To me, that's a lot of noise that just creates confusion. Communicating with our clients and helping educate them and us and say, hey, we're not going to tell you every call we make, but here's our calls. We made 20 calls over the last 20 days or 25 days, that type of communication. So the firms that are on top of their leads and really overly communicating internally and with us, those are the ones that are converting better, to be honest. And it's just attention and focus.
Just generically speaking, that makes sense. Typically, relationships work better. They're more efficient and effective when you communicate. So moving forward, legal marketing certainly has changed dramatically over time. Potential clients for law firms now expect sort of Netflix level convenience and Amazon speed, your ability to stream anything you want, anytime you want, and being able to go into Amazon and order something and have it here the next day. With all this noise, we have to really look at what matters. So what trends have you seen in legal marketing over the last couple of years that sort of help promote that?
I think the trends of trying to be in more places and needing to be in more places. So a firm typically used to do a Google ad, send them to our website, and let's convert them. Now it's, okay, we've got LSAs, we've got Google ads, we've got Facebook ads, we've got Instagram and TikTok ads, things like that. Then how do we take them from those ads and that part, where do we send them? And some of the platforms, say Facebook, they don't really want you sending them to a website. They want the person to fill out a Facebook form because they want to say, hey, we did more for you than your website.
Right.
So I think the trend of there's so many different channels and having to have similar messaging, and consistent communication capabilities. So if someone comes through Facebook, are they getting the same treatment technology-wise, intake-wise, response-wise as somebody filling out a form on your website? And so I think that it's added a lot of complexity to legal marketing, but I think the folks that are able to be more consistent across all the channels, however they respond intake-wise and what kind of experience they provide, are the ones that are going to come out on top on that.
Okay, with that thought in mind, do you think law firms are keeping up with client expectations as a general rule?
No, as in general, I think because that's expectations are going so fast, and they're expanding so fast with the technology that's out there now. I think the adoption of tech has always been slow for legal anyways. But
Agreed.
right now for me, if you're a firm and you're opposed to using AI on the voice or chat side, I think you're going to struggle. I've been blown away by the improvement in voice AI and the improvement in the ability to connect those tools to intake systems, to the firm's phone system. Virtual receptionists that are human are not going to be doing as good of a job. They're going to be priced out, and
Yep.
it's faster than what we think. The firms that are adopting that kind of, hey, we'll give it a shot, or we'll do some testing and get their own bias out of the way
Yeah.
on it's a bot. I don't like talking to bots, but give it a shot. I think the open mind will help provide that kind of improvement in how you meet those expectations.
I completely agree with you. So, from an intake perspective, AI is no longer just a buzzword. It's a valuable tool in that fight.
For sure. Right now, you're not going to have one AI agent that can do all of it, for sure. And so, how can you utilize it so that every call gets answered? How can you utilize it so every lead is responded to? And I've been kind of preaching a little bit over the last year or so that law firms in the past have always been, I want more leads, more. And vendors are like, we'll produce more clicks, more leads. For me, I don't want more, I want better. And so I don't care if I used to get 100 leads from this vendor over here. I only get 25 from this vendor, but 20 of them are qualified, or all 25 are qualified, and the other 75 I don't even have to hear or see or deal with necessarily. So
Yep.
it's going to be, how do we get more efficient and how do we improve the quality of the leads we're dealing with and not spending time or resources on unqualified leads.
Yeah. And that can be a huge drain on firms. I mean, we all know people costs are typically the highest that most businesses need to incur. So, time is valuable, not only, of course, for attorneys, but for any member of their staff. So, if you
Yeah.
can make it more efficient, yeah. Any trends that come to mind that you think firms are overhyping now?
I think maybe that what I just mentioned, and I don't know if it's a trend necessarily, but it was more, just get me more. And the trend, I think, is starting to change a little bit, but the hype of, yeah, I got 200 leads, I got 200 potential clients last month. It's not about volume as much as it should be or used to be because of the ability to qualify and screen and filter.
Okay. At the end of the day, you and I both know this. Law firms don't just want leads, they want signed clients. They sort of qualify that as the true north. And John, I know that's a key distinction that Intake Engine focuses on. So let's talk a little bit about how to scale smartly and actually close the gap between potential client or lead and actually signing a client. How does Intake Engine help firms go from lead generation to actually having a signed client?
I think using our platform that we've built, the proprietary platform that gives the person the ability to complete their intake on their own, or the ability to talk with a human agent and go through the traditional intake process. And then combining that with e-sign that's all streamlined, all can be done in one, 30-minute, if you will, or 20-minute situation. So Intake Engine, I don't think I've seen companies that can do both. I see, yeah, we're all human, we do voice, and then we do it over the phone, or they're all tech and they can go through the flow. But I don't see hybrid approaches out there. That's a uniqueness that we have that others don't. And so we do see about 25% of the clients we sign go through on their own the entire way through. We don't send those to the firm immediately. We do vet or confirm and verify over the phone before we send that retainer over to the firm.
Okay.
But we didn't have to spend 20 minutes on the phone with them. And as a general consumer, I don't want to spend 25 minutes on the phone with somebody when I can go through 20 minutes of it on my own and then spend the last part on the phone. So let me do as much as I can before I have to interact with somebody to help me.
Yeah. Okay. I'm the same way, and I'm sure we're the average Joe when it comes to that. Talk a little bit about your approach to qualifying leads, especially at volume, considering some of the different mass tort matters that you work on and the number of potential clients that sort of come through your doors.
So we do get logic and criteria up front. And so let's say Roundup, we're going to have the non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Yes, there's certain time frames where they were diagnosed, certain times when they encountered Roundup or when they were using it. So we try to build out as many kind of qualifying questions to identify what the firm wants. And usually that starts up front with a pretty general and broad criteria. If they meet these 5 requirements, go ahead and sign it up. As we go through and as the firm does more of their discovery and workup after the fact, they might come back and say, hey, can you change it to only this diagnosis instead of these 3? So we can adjust that kind of on the fly. So at first it starts a little bit broad, but we can get it more narrow as time goes on. And as we work different PI campaigns as well, that throws in, okay, you've got geographic, were they injured? Yes, no. What type of injuries? And I know we're going to continue to build on that level of severity. We don't want soft tissue. We only want this type. And so just being able to build in as much of the quantifiable data as you can do. So that's where, again, AI can help and tech and workflows can help, where it knows a statute or it can check against a state statute to see if it's within the SOL. So for us, the logic is done first and foremost for us to define how can we take this from start to finish, and we don't have to come to the firm and say, do you want this, yes or no?
Right.
We do have that ability as well for kind of edge cases. So if it's questionable or within a few months of the SOL, we can put that to another bucket and send that to the firm for review to say yes or no. And if they say yes, we'll go sign it up.
Okay. If you had to literally or virtually walk into different law firm or potential law firm clients for you, what would you share with them as low-hanging fruit for them to improve their conversion funnel?
I think putting something in place to do a little bit of pre-qualification. There's still web forms out there I see on firms' website that are name, phone number, email, tell us about your case. It's insane. Like, it's just insane to me at this time. Just add something in there. I know the idea was don't put as many questions in there because it will reduce the number of form fills. It'll keep people from filling it out.
Right.
I think if you have 2 additional questions, were you injured in an accident? Yes or no? If it's no, and you don't want non-injuries, then there you go. It will result in fewer leads, but your conversion will go up because you're working with more qualified leads at that point. So that's first and foremost is how do they come in? Is there any kind of vetting or pre-qual or triage that's done to identify higher potential clients?
Right. Okay. Yeah, that's a good one.
Higher value potential clients, if you will. Yeah.
I have to be honest, John, a lot of our clients, their contact forms are very simple, the ones you described, and we should probably actually look harder at those to try and enhance the contact form. So thanks. That's a takeaway from me.
There you go.
So what do you think intake and lead generation will look like in 2 years or in 5 years? Sort of project out, considering the changes you've seen in technology over the last couple of years, where do you see it heading in the next couple of years?
So I look back at kind of the evolution of Client Chat Live. And when we started, it was just get their name, phone number, and email, and maybe the type of case, and get it to us as soon as possible. And that was perfectly fine. That was way back when, in the olden days. As that evolved, it was, hey, can you ask if they were injured? Hey, can you ask where they were? And can you also match that against what we actually take on and what our criteria is? And so that evolution of that service went from just get the basics to let's get more details, let's actually qualify, let's actually do more intake within the chat. And I see intake going that same route of, okay, you've got them signed. Now we want you to request medical records. Now we want you to be a part of that process as well, the workup process. Because I can see, especially on mass torts, there's always that attrition of, You sign 10 retainers, you're going to probably end up throwing out 2 or 3 because the medical records don't come in or they don't match what the person said in the intake, various reasons. And so I could see that continuing to evolve where that part of the workflow is just absorbed within intake. And
Right.
it's no longer, hey, do you answer the phone and how do you send us the lead? It's, I want the full thing, retainer, med records, requests, and workup. So I see that happening over the next couple of years.
Okay. How about just overall trends in legal marketing? Is there anything that you can foresee in the not too distant future that you're excited about or perhaps worried about at the other end of the spectrum?
I think I'm excited about being able to utilize AI to close the feedback loop on, okay, you've got lead that comes in, you know they came in from a Google ad, you've got their click ID, you've gone through the process. As long as you maintain that all the way through, you can feed that back to Google. I know that's not new, but it's manual to a certain extent unless you've got Zapier and some other things built in. So I think just the ability for AI to some of those pieces and remove the human element out of it is exciting. I do think it's exciting, the AI and intake, for what it's worth, to be able to have a more conversational experience and not spend 3 minutes spelling a last name. And so, just getting to that point where an AI can do that way more efficiently,
Yeah.
unfortunately. But I'd see those as exciting, a little scary, but exciting at the same time. I think it'll be interesting on the regulation side of things. I saw something the other day. I know this stuff comes out every day on politics and all that, but potential moratorium on regulating AI, just letting it go so that we don't stifle innovation.
Yeah.
All good. But I could see just it running away as fast as it's moving in the next over the last couple of years. I couldn't imagine what 10 years will look like. But
I know.
I think with like TikTok and some different channels and things like that and GPT results showing in GPT, I don't Google anything anymore. I use Perplexity. Every time I Google something, I see the result and I'm like, why did I do that? Go to Perplexity, even use ChatGPT. Hey, do you know if this is happening or can you tell me about this? It's just a better experience. So I'm sure that is going to take over pretty soon on how you optimize for being on GPT or Perplexity and things like that.
Yep. I mean, my wife and I just yesterday, we were talking about a medical issue with my father, and I was Googling things. I was actually sitting in my car on the phone with my wife, on my phone, Googling things. 10 seconds in, I thought, why am I doing this? And I pulled up Chat GPT and asked the questions. And, the information I got was so much more comprehensive. So, yeah,
Yep.
just everyday stuff. All right. So if you had one piece of advice to give a law firm owner to improve their marketing this year, between now and the end of the year, anything jump to mind?
I would say when you connect marketing to intake, I think if you map out all the different potential client journeys, and I mentioned all the different channels people can come through, it's not as simple as click on ad, go to website, fill out form. Map out as many of those as you can and see if they match one another in terms of their messaging, in terms of the flow. Do they all get handled the same way? I think when you look at that, you can take steps out, you can add steps, you can add automation, you can add, okay, we're dropping the ball here, let's add a person to look at that. That helps you visualize the journey that a potential client will go through. And from that point, you can optimize, streamline, make it a better user experience, and should lead to more conversions, more signups, which ultimately, better return on that investment on the marketing front. You're doing so much work and spending so much money on driving that potential client to wherever, whatever form, whatever contact system, make the most.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That makes sense. All right. So I've got a handful of rapid fire questions. So we'll get through these pretty quickly. Jon, what's one thing that firms should stop doing in intake immediately?
Using an outsourced virtual receptionist that just takes messages.
Oh, that's a good one. Okay. All right. If you only had $5,000 to build an intake system, how would you spend it?
As a vibe coder, I would use it for, I don't know if you know what vibe coding is, but I'm not a coder, I'm not a developer, but I use Windsurf and some other things, now Firebase Studio, and you can just tell it what you want to build, and it can build you an app for the most part. It's not foolproof, but it's crazy. So for me, I would use a simple database system and set up AI voice inbound and outbound, and then have some people that can do outbound calls during the day as well that are, full time or even contract, but those kind of golden hours when people actually answer the phone.
Yep.
And get a human on there. So
Yeah, it's a great
just a
idea.
simple workflow, and connect it with Zapier and N8N and all the cool things out there, all the tools.
Okay. What's the biggest myth about legal marketing that you've ever heard?
The bigger the agency, the better they are.
Okay. Good one. I like that.
Yeah.
How about the craziest intake story you've ever come across?
I've heard quite a few. And going back to Client Chat Live, we tried to be not specific to lawyers and legal early on, even though we were started by myself and an attorney, and that was our goal. And 98% of our clients were lawyers. So we had some really weird dental chats, and it was like, I need to tell this person to call a dentist. This is kind of gross, to be honest. Why would you chat about this? So that kind of sticks in the craziest, but yeah, pretty wild. We pivoted pretty quickly to being focused on legal.
Finally, a kind of a generic question. What's the best advice you've ever received?
I've said this, I think, on other podcasts and things, but when I was in oil and gas with the Energy Alloys, my COO, had very experienced executive, and he said, hey, our job as a business is to grow the company, to give you the opportunities to grow as well. And if we don't have opportunities, I'll be the first to sign a letter of recommendation to go to be a VP at Halliburton or something like that. So he's like, if you outgrow us, that's our fault, not your fault. And I'm not going to hold you to that. So I've always kind of tried to do that with people I manage or teams I'm building. It's, I want you to be successful and grow. And if you outgrow us, that's not on you. And I'm not going to hold you accountable for that.
Yeah, that's great. That's good. Yeah, I like that. Having managed people before, I see that.
Yeah.
All right, good. Jon, this has been incredibly insightful. Thank you. For firms that want to learn more about you, what Intake Engine does, or just simply want to connect with you, how should they go about doing that?
I'd say LinkedIn's probably the best way to connect directly. So Jon Cumberworth, Jon, no H. And then intakeengine.com. We're also in the process of rolling Intake Engine under Blue Sky Legal as well. And we've made an announcement about that and told our clients, but more things to come there to where Intake Engine's more of a product and tech stack than it is a standalone company. But, we want to kind of vertically integrate and help firms basically say, okay, here's my campaign, or here's what I want to focus on. Go get me retainers and be a kind of a one-stop shop that they can trust. So long story short, LinkedIn is probably the best place to connect with me.
Good deal. All right, Jon, it sounds like you've really settled into Intake Engine, and we've known each other for a number of years, and I think that Blue Sky and Intake Engine's got a good one in you. So
Appreciate it.
Congratulations. And I really appreciate you joining me today. Thank you. I wish you only the best going forward. And for more conversations like this, subscribe to The Legal Edge. You can drop us a review and you can share it with your team. And let's keep making marketing smarter. Thanks for joining.